Hello, I'm Dr. Beth Godey.
And I'm Dr. Martha Leatherman. I'm a geriatric specialist in psychiatry.
And I'm a neuropsychologist, and I specialize in aging.
We're experts in dementia care, and we're here to provide you some information and answer some questions that we hear very commonly about dementia and other issues in aging.
You know, in our previous session, we talked about the frontal lobes, the executive center of the brain, and we talked about the way that the frontal lobes allow us to appraise our own behavior and know our limits, and also place the hand over the mouth so we don't automatically say things, whatever comes to mind, or do things, whatever comes to mind, impulsively. But now we want to focus on some other aspects of the executive center, one being apathy, or which can often be mistaken for depression.
Well, let's say what apathy is first.
Yes. Apathy meaning seeming not to care, not to have the interest or the initiative, and just even though you may express interest in something, you just don't.
Kind of flat and
Just
blah.
not
Well, you know,
interested.
she used to always want to go play bridge, and my dad golfed 3 times a week all of his life, but now he just wants to sit in front of the TV.
Right.
Somebody with frontal lobe apathy, you'll say, well, do you enjoy playing bridge? Oh, yes. Sure.
Mm-hmm. And I'm very busy.
I'm very active.
I'm
Because
very active.
they really don't see their loss of engagement very clearly. Also because of the frontal lobe problems, because remember we said that frontal lobe was monitoring and reflecting on your behavior and seeing yourself in a realistic kind of light,
Right.
and they don't.
What we call insight and awareness, that is lacking. And then there's the motivation or the initiative of getting things done. So the person can express interest in, I would love to go to lunch with some of my friends. And they may have that interest, but they can't quite get it started. They can't implement, can't execute that, can't initiate that behavior.
And once they initiate it, they might not be able to carry it through.
Right.
So maybe a friend calls them and says, well, let's get to lunch on Tuesday. Check your calendar. Nothing happens with the second step. And you can really see this in financial situations. And this is kind of where financial management of people with very early dementia or mild cognitive impairment, frontal lobe dysfunction, first manifests itself. It's not that they forget how to add the bank statements and accounts.
Right.
It's not that they forget how to write a check. It's that the initiative and then the sequencing, so getting all the bills in one place, getting the checkbook out, getting the envelopes and stamps, and moving through that sequence. They cannot sequence it and do it.
Too many steps.
Too many steps.
The brain doesn't allow them to go ahead and go to the next step. We've had families tell us, I collect mom's bills out of the mail. I put them in a special little basket right next to her desk or on the desk with the pen and the stamps already there.
And I'll say to her, now, Mom, on Tuesday, what are you going to do? And she'll say, I'm going to pay the bills.
Those bills. And it never happens.
If you think about it, and I want to make this caveat that we are not saying, we do not say, and we will never say that people with dementia are like children.
No.
However, children's frontal lobes are not developed. And just like with a child, where you have to lay out the clothes in the morning to get ready to go to school, and then you have to go in and say, now remember to put on your socks, remember to put on your shirt, here is your coat. You have to provide those steps in that structure because their frontal lobe hasn't developed.
And in fact, families will say, dealing with my mother and all this is like dealing with a child. I have to tell her every step to take.
But you're not dealing with a child. You're dealing with somebody who has frontal lobe problems, and so they need the sequencing help like a child does, but it doesn't mean they're a child.
Right. The other problem that comes up is when people won't go to the doctor. You'll say, "Oh, Mom, now you need to go see the doctor about that rash on your arm." "Oh, you're right. Well, I'll make the appointment," and then the appointment never gets made. Or the person thinks, "Well, this rash isn't so bad. I'm sure I can take care of it." Again, some judgment problems, and there's no initiative. There's no carrying through. Just like call your friend on Tuesday for lunch, doesn't happen. The bill paying doesn't happen.
So that's kind of complicated. It's a situation where they won't go to the doctor, number one, because of insight, not recognizing that shortness of breath and swelling legs may mean a different medical condition.
Right.
Number two, judgment, where you tell them, this could be dangerous. No, it'll be fine. I've always been fine. I've always been healthy. Well, but you haven't always been 92 either. So, so that's a judgment issue. And then once you get somebody to realize they do need medical attention, getting the appointment made and following through with it all requires this frontal lobe executive function.
Now, another problem that people will express is Mom seems to be losing weight, and I go over, I take her meals already prepared, like some of the part of the meal that we've had that evening, I'll take over to her, put it in her refrigerator, and I'll say, "Now, Mom, just be sure you just put it in the microwave for 1 minute, or 2 minutes on half power, and then you can eat. But be sure to take out the roll, because the roll will get too hard." And I know, honey, I use the microwave all the time. And then the meal stays in the refrigerator, and you have long, heartfelt talks with your mom about the importance of nutrition, but nothing ever seems to get done. It's not it may not be a forgetfulness as
Right.
much as too many steps, like paying those bills. You got to get up, you got to get that thing out of the container, put
Right.
it in the microwave, you got to get a plate to eat on. Just too many steps for the brain to take.
The analogy that Dr. Godey uses that I like is if somebody walked in your living room and said, "Build a car right now," telling somebody with frontal lobe impairment to pay the bills or
Fix
lunch is like telling somebody with a normal frontal lobe to build a car right now. You really have to step by step. So what do you do? Because you can't. Are you going to move in with them and become their frontal lobes? That's what some people do.
Well, actually, somebody has to play the role of the frontal lobes. And whether it's a home caregiver, or whether it's a family member, or whether it's a move to assisted living or a different residential facility, a residential situation, that's what has to happen, unfortunately. All those heartfelt talks and all those logical reasoning sessions with your loved one are not going to make any difference, because they may say they understand, but the actual implementation or execution of the plan is not going to take place.
And very often families who have worked hard to keep a loved one from a higher level of care, assisted living facility or nursing home, find that when somebody with frontal lobe impairment goes into an assisted living facility, that they do much better. They gain weight, they become more interactive and involved, because the setting is structured, and that structure provides sort of a frontal lobe splint for them. And so they do. They eat well, they interact, and they do better.
So we hope this helps you understand some of your loved one's behaviors and make it maybe a little easier to handle.
For more answers to questions like these, our book, The Insider's Guide to Dementia Care, is available at Amazon.com.